Good morning, guys. As you can see next to me, there's a special guest today. The guest is Mark. He's a very smiley, very friendly guy, and he's here because he takes care of the green. Then is on the tennis court here in Dublin for the ATP Challenger. As you know, green court means Dublin Challenger, but also means Wimbledon, and which is just around the corner. Mark is here just to give a little bit of an insight. How does it work behind the scenes? Those things that nobody really sees unless you come very early in the morning or stay probably very late in the night. We don't know. We have a few questions. We're going to ask Mark, and Mark is kind enough to give us 10 minutes of his time, I guess, Mark, around then. Maybe less, maybe more, we'll see.
Go on.
And so, the first question, and actually, let's start with say, thank you very much, Mark, for being here. It's super cool. And can I ask you the first question from the community? Is that all right? Okay. So, community, wants to know the secrets and how. So, grass is a very particular surface. It's the only surface that really lives and breathes and grows during the tournament, right? The others, they don't. So, how do you actually manage to ensure that the surface can bounce properly, so can make the ball bounce properly, as well as provide a firm and safe environment for the players to play in?
Okay, well, there's a few things. First of all, if we're going to have consistency of performance, we need consistency of surface. So for that, we want to try and encourage a uniform sward of turf. So we want to have a uniform turf cover throughout the entire court. Obviously, there's certain things I can't control. I can't control the amount of rain that falls. So with the precipitation, obviously that will negate any firmness gains that we make. So if the court, so for example, this week, leading into the week, we had our cuts were at 8mm, which would be typical for grass courts. However, because we weren't achieving the type of firmness that I wanted out of them, I dropped them to 7 just to squeeze a little bit more performance out of them. And obviously the surface was uniform, so the feedback seems to be we're getting a uniform bounce, and the bounce seems to be adequate.
Perfect. And you guys know, following us, that this tournament has pretty much an interesting roster and players who are playing. So there's a Bernard Tomic playing right now. There was a Maestrelli playing yesterday, and there's a Grigor Dimitrov that is going to play today as well. So those are kind of the stars alongside others. We learned that there was a few French players as well, Tabour, who just played Sinner in Roland Garros, so Droguet, and many others that probably will forget some name, but so that's why we don't want to do that. But the question for Mark is actually how...
You get my name after this.
we got, absolutely. The question for Mark is also, since he mentioned he wants to create the perfect environment for the players to perform, and he can't control, unfortunately, the weather as well. He has not got this power yet. But how would you hope to prevent the court to become slippery? Because grass, as we said, is a bit tricky surface and to manage. And is there anything in particular you hope you do actually?
Well, obviously. The courts are predominantly dwarf perennial rye at the moment, so one side of that particular plant can be slippy.
Yeah.
The lower heights of cut tend to mitigate the potential for slippiness because obviously there's less surface contact because of smaller leaf blade. But the other thing we can do is try and manage the surface moisture level. So we do that by using surfactants which help try and keep the surfaces actually dry. So it's just one of the tools that we have at our disposal.
Cool. And you now see Mark. Mark, it looks pretty fresh. It's still early in the week, but Mark puts many hours, not just Mark, obviously Mark and the team, puts many hours of work to make this possible, really. And as we said, grass is a very particular surface to play in. And Mark, players on grass usually plays 1 hour, 1 hour and 30 minutes, right? It depends, 2-3 sets. But how many hours of your day you actually invest to make this hour and a half of game possible, actually?
Well, this week is actually probably, apart from the very early starts, because we're on the courts at 6 o'clock, mowing them and getting them ready for lining purposes. Right. Obviously, I have a team of volunteers who help with removing all of the umpire chairs, the nets, the benches and so forth, so we have a clean apron so we can mow. But leading up to the tournament, there would have been quite a lot of maintenance would have gone on with the courts, and this maintenance would go on typically for the benefit of our members. The only difference is this week we upped the repetition. So for the last 10 days we've been mowing the courts every day and lining the courts every day for the last 10 days, and that's been repeated every single day. So that process takes about 4 hours every day. They'll get stripped down in the evening time, and we'll go again at them in the morning, and it just cleans them all up. But leading up to the tournament, it would be, I'd have to look through my records, but I mean, there's a huge amount of hours. There's probably at least 200 hours have gone into preparing the courts, which would have happened anyhow, because you know we obviously have to serve our membership on a year-round basis.
Of course. You know, like when we are approaching the grass season, we see footages of Wimbledon, and usually the greenkeeper there is a kind of a legend. You know, you'll see like using tools, and you see particular lamps to. I'm not even sure how to call them, because I'm not an expert. That's why we brought you. And I was wondering what tools are you actually using to make sure the courts actually is up to the standard that you wish, and the tour wish, and the players wish, and everybody wants?
Well, look at this year now. We've acquired rain capes, so we are going to, if the tournament is back here next year, we will have a huge degree of control over the firmness levels, which are dictated predominantly by moisture. But like in terms of the firmness, once we get the feedback from the players, we take note of that, and we correlate that with measurements we take via a Clegg impact hammer. So we would measure them, we'd put them against a scientifically verified number, and if that's hitting the sweet spots in terms of performance characteristic, that's what we target going forward. If things change in terms of the speed and strength of the athlete, and the feedback is that number needs to change, well then we will look for another number. But as long as we can control moisture, we have a fairly good shot at actually arriving at whatever number we want. And I know if moisture isn't something that's hurting us, we can go north of 140 gravites, which is basically like landing on a pathway.
And now Mark thinks it's over, but I actually have a surprise question for him. But he's going to be ready for that, because it's not very personal. But let's say I'm curious to know what's his hope for the next day when he wakes up, or what's the worst nightmare for a person who does his job. So let's start with the nightmare, then let's end with the hope.
Well, the nightmare would be that we'd have a catastrophic rain event, because it'll be very difficult. Because putting the rain capes on is no mean feat. We have 4 courts that are all in the same paddock. It'll be a huge undertaking to get them covered. So if that happens now, it's going to be very stressful.
And the hope?
That it doesn't happen.
I'd say we can end with this. And thank you very much, Mark, for being with us. It's been super cool. You answered all the questions magnificently. I hope, guys, you really appreciate Mark's presence here, because it's a person, is a professional, works really putting his hands on the grass and making sure what you see on TV, he actually is to a level of performance and a standard that's as you expect, as you want. And the players are super happy. As you can see from the TV, the color is magnificent, and happy days. So guys, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, Mark, again.
Cheers. Thank you.
It's been a massive pleasure. Thank you very much.